Welcome to the Innovators, the podcast where we talk to the people building the future. In each episode, we sit down with technologists, founders, researchers, and engineers who are doing real, impactful work. They're applying technologies in ways that change how we live, work, and think. Whether it's breakthroughs in AI, climate tech, health systems, or digital infrastructure, this show is about the people turning ambitious ideas into working systems. No hype, just thoughtful conversations with the folks making it happen. Back to the Innovators, a podcast about amazing people doing amazing things. Today's amazing person is Mitchell Jones. He's the founder of Lava. I checked this out just now, and you're basically monetizing AI, which sounds like something that I want to have happen because I want to make some money on all the stuff that AI has stolen from me. Is that feasible, Joel?
We can get you set up in minutes.
Okay.
And so that's exactly what we do is we try to make it super easy for if you're an existing company or a new AI startup and you're trying to make it very easy to do AI pricing. Mm-hmm. We want you to be able to get set up in minutes. And, the big issue that most people run into these days is most of the legacy payment systems were made really only for subscriptions. The minute you need to do cost tracking on LLMs and then incorporating that into your pricing, doing usage-based pricing, it gets really tough. Mm-hmm. And, as we look, agents more and more and more are needing to also charge based on compute and not just on the subscription alone. And so now you're seeing a lot of this in pricing or people offering credits and actions and things like that. And so that's really what we do is we make that process, which used to be very painful because all of the legacy tools really don't do it. We try to make it super simple.
Okay. So this is metering, billing, payouts. So this is basically, is this my AI powered project? Am I using somebody else's LLM? Am I offering an LLM? What am I offering? What am I as your customer selling?
So what we do to make it really easy is we have two products that work as one whole. We have an AI gateway that allows you to route all of your LLM calls. And what that means is if you want to use and be multi-model across Claude, OpenAI, GPT, etc., you can use our gateway to call those models. And then because you're calling them through us, we actually can help you see all the cost, all the tracking of it for every single customer you're serving. So then when you want to actually make money on top of that or set limits, you can actually do that very easy. Mm-hmm. So that leads into our second product, our payment orchestration product. So together, those two work as one very easy solution for you to build your AI app, call the models through it. And because in real time, we're seeing the cost of it, we can then actually help you say, how much do you want to make on every one of these actions? Do you want to make $20 on it, $30 on it, a 50% margin, a 60% margin? You tell me.
And you pay through to the AI company.
Correct.
Right?
And so what's powerful there, which most founders are running into these days, is they usually try to go with one of the companies that be, whether it's Stripe or WorldPay or FIS or Adyen, and they're going to go to these companies and then try to build it. And they were never really meant to handle not only usage-based payment, but variable LLM call-based payment. Mm-hmm. Right. And so agents are doing a lot of different calls. And so you need some solution that allows them to call, but in real time also say, well, here's what the compute was used. Here's how much margin you want to make sure you're making on it. For many companies now, their bills are getting so crazy just how much compute they're using. If you're not incorporating that into your cost, you can go underwater now. Like mm-hmm. that is not a concept that most engineers were used to in the SaaS era. Like there was variable cost, but it was so low, you could just treat it like it was a fixed cost.
Yeah, that's the interesting point. I mean, like AWS, for example, for years or whatever, if I have a DigitalOcean instance, a couple of droplets or whatever, that's like $50 a month. And this could go anywhere from, if it's the wrong kind of customer, it could go anywhere from like $1,000 just like on one person that you're not actually paying attention to.
Correct. And how do you make it so that your best customer is actually your best customer? Mm-hmm. We're in a weird world right now where for many businesses, your best customer, aka your power user, is actually your worst customer. Right? Mm-hmm. You're making actually the worst margin on them because you're not actually incorporating usage into your product. And most startups, the reason they go to subscription with no overage or no credit-based system right now is they're worried that it's going to be super difficult and hard to do. And our goal is just make that very, very simple for them to do.
So, I mean, this is a picks and shovels kind of situation. Where did this come from? Where did you How did you think this up?
Man, well, for me, it's like I have a background in payments. Before I started companies, I worked at Facebook and I ran Facebook's digital wallet for Asia and Latin America, their fiat digital wallet. And, that really got me into payments there. And then my first startup, we built effectively a way to get paid out of 401ks as a payment method. So I love payments work, and every payments problem is different. And, I was sitting at the beginning of this year, starting my new company. And the big obvious thing I saw right off the bat was just that, AI is a computer's utility. It's not a SaaS. And what I mean by that is if you think of every utility in the world, how do they charge? How does your water bill charge, your electric bill, your phone bill? Even though you're on the unlimited plan, you're still on a meter. Every single one of these things, utilities charged on a meter. Right now, you have what needs to be on a meter in a SaaS product with no meter. That is destined for problems because you're not able to then make sure you're making enough money for the product you're serving, right? And so that led me to say, wait a minute. I talked to a bunch of my friends in startups and Y Combinator and all of these things, and it was very, very clear to me, wait, the existing solutions were made only for SaaS. The minute you need to be able to charge based on some combination of subscription and then credit usage or things like that, there's just no solution to really do it very quickly.
Okay, so you asked around and you said, hey, I want this. Nobody had this, right? What was your first step to, like, I don't know, figure out how to build this thing?
Well, I'll tell most founders, like, I don't care if there's AI, if AI can go do the most important thing you need to do in the early days is go talk to customers. And you can't push that work onto anyone. I talked to dozens and dozens and dozens of people just trying to understand. And also I always default assume that, like, there is not a need for a new solution. So those two things serve me well. It's like, hey, here's something that I think is a problem. Is it a problem? Oh, yes, it is. Then the next question is, well, why don't you just use Stripe, right? Why don't you just use X? And then when the answer coming back over and over again is, yeah, man, well, the issue is Stripe really only handles the subscription piece. All the orchestration of the credits and the wallet piece, like, it doesn't really do any of that. And it's like, oh, okay, you hear that like over and over and over again. And it's like, do you want to build it yourself? And when people are like, hell no, that's when you know you're onto something. And so the main thing I would say to any founder is just talk to your customers. There's no substituting it, because the whole thing is you don't want to be a solution in search of a problem. You want to be actually solving a real problem for them. And your default is there's no value in what you're doing until someone actually is like, no, seriously, this is messed up for me.
And how's the company doing? How far along are you?
It's doing great. We founded we first started playing around with this idea in February. We got our first customers back in May. We raised our first round near the end of June. We raised a $5.8 million round from some great folks. And, I think the big thing is there's a very obvious trend here, which is if you were building a SaaS company a year ago, you're having to figure out how to make the pricing actually work for it now. And the existing tools don't work. And so you can go run up that hill and you can go build a bunch of custom code. And then if you're willing to maintain all that custom code, then go for it. If not, you're going to probably just use Lava. And so, we've been able to grow very, very fast from that. Got our original customers effectively just with MVPs. And since then, it's just we're solving such an acute problem. And there's just so many people in the space now that need a solution in this area. So, like some of our first customers were AI BDRs and AI medical scribes and AI recruiters. But now we're even seeing legacy companies who are trying to figure out, how do I transform my pricing from, this like very fixed SaaS-based pricing to per use pricing based on like what AI tools we're using, and incorporating the actual cost of that service into what the end bill is, right? And, there's, companies like AWS that have perfected this, right? You mentioned that one earlier, or like DigitalOcean really kind of treats it all really as fixed. So AWS is probably the really clean one. It's like they've perfected this, like such a seamless understanding of like, you're going to continue to use your cloud and that budget's going to scale and like, you're going to continue to pay for it. But making that amenable to the average business or the average customers is not really easy right now. And that's really what we're on a mission to do.
Tell us about your startup background. Doesn't sound like this is your first one.
No, man. So, I'm originally from Ohio. I did not come from a startup background of like, I knew what computer science was from day one. So for me, it was a little bit more roundabout. Parents always told me save your money, get a good education. So, try to go to a good school, work hard in school, all that good stuff. And my founder journey kind of starts actually, I was in a finance internship back then. Wealthfront, Betterment, Acorn, Stash, those companies were coming up, Robinhood. And I was really inspired. I was like sitting in this more traditional finance internship and I was like, wow, like, there's all of these companies innovating in this field that I find very interesting. And that made me really inspired to start doing that. So I started studying CS, ended up working at, some really, really great companies, Dropbox and then Facebook, where I got to see really how good tech companies are run. And, then after that started my first company, Lintable, and built that for 5 years, scaled it and grew it to tens of thousands of people, and then started Lava earlier this year. So it's been a fun journey. I've been able to get a lot of perspective across my businesses. I've raised about $50 million at this point, but I've scaled more importantly than the fundraising numbers is like, I've had tens of thousands of people use the products and, have helped them save millions of dollars for retirement for my first business. And those are the things that I think get me excited is I love challenging payments problems. I love focusing on, issues that are like very front and center today. And I kind of love the plumbing. Most people don't want to deal with payment stuff. So I like dealing with it. So then you don't have to.
So from a founder standpoint, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who is in your boat? Like maybe I'm from Ohio as well. So I know the horror of that place.
What city are you from?
Columbus.
There you go. I'm from Dayton.
Oh, there you go.
I go to,
it's even worse.
Yep.
Yeah. I remember Dayton. Dayton was Dayton, I think, was the tire fire capital of America. So that's good.
The tire, it was because because the plant. It's probably not anymore because just so many of those plants are gone. But yeah.
How do you break free of that black hole? Right? How do you break free of that gravity?
Well, I think first is like I think the first thing I'll tell any founder is like wherever you're from, there are some unique advantages. You got to just figure out how to use them. Right. Like in my opinion, some of the more personable people in the country are usually from like the Midwest, just because it's like a kind of Midwestern flair there. And that can actually serve you well as a founder. And so it's like, especially when you go to like Silicon Valley or places like that, where it's very pay it forward. And like, there's a more rising tide raises all boats mentality in terms of how early stage founders help each other out. And so you leaning into that like Midwesternness is something that could probably help you. But I think maybe the bigger question you're asking is like, if you're an outsider, how do you kind of how do you get there? Because, for me, it wasn't overnight. Right. It wasn't like I just knew all the things and had access to all the people. That was certainly not my journey. And, the thing I would tell you is like, step one is don't look at the peak of the mountain. Just look at the steps in front of you. In my career, I've always been the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. And so try to understand what's the next checkpoint and just try to straight line to that checkpoint. Don't worry about all of the other pieces of the checkpoint, just the one in front of you, right? When I was in college at Yale and I didn't know anything about CS and I had just been inspired when I was in my finance internships, I was like, well, I don't know anything about CS. I'd never even heard of it until I literally was like reading the Wall Street Journal every day, learning about how like Wealthfront and Betterment are doing these passively managed funds and they're beating actively managed funds. And I was like, okay, well, I probably need to start studying CS. So I didn't think about how do I build like $1 billion startup yet? I thought about how do I get great at learning computer science? And then the next step was like, okay, after college, like, well, I probably shouldn't take my return offer from Goldman. I should probably go to a tech company. And so that was the new shortest distance between point is like, if I want to get better, what is the step to getting better? And founders, just remember, like most of the work that you're going to do, and even potential aspiring founders, most of the work you're going to do comes before anyone ever knows your name, before you've ever raised $1, before you've ever had a customer. It's the work you do on yourself to understand that. I remember I had been writing in my notebooks about ideas and things since college, but I had to save up money before I could really do a startup. But I didn't see my time at Dropbox and Facebook as wasted. I got to learn a lot. Like I got to learn how really successful organizations get run at scale. I got to learn some of the things not to do at scale and seeing some of the sins that they were trying to make up for at those companies. And so the advice I'd give to founders is looking at the top of the mountain is arduous. Focus on the step ahead and really believe in those like small steps, and they compound. Right. And it's like, believe in compounding yourself, and that will take you very, very far.
You didn't, well, I mean, look, you had a fairly deep, I guess you would call it like a bench, right? So you had Yale, then you had just crazy startups that like that weren't startups after a while. And I think I mean, it's a testament to like the sheer like will of a Midwesterner to just get out there and do these things.
Yep.
When should somebody like you um, start thinking about their startup? Should they go into the business? Should they graduate, go into
Yeah.
the business, go into a corporate world
Yeah.
first? That kind of thing. Because I mean, you have a lot of folks who are just going to pop out the other end and like they finish at OSU or something like that, and they want to do a
Yeah.
startup. But when should they do
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. It's a great question. Well, one thing for all those folks who maybe aren't from, again, for me, truly, the shortest distance was between 2 points was a straight line. I went to college on the East Coast. I born and raised in Ohio,
Mm-hmm.
Dayton, Ohio, all the way through. Ended up going to San Francisco because I was like the best place to start my first company is probably in California. But to answer your question, never sleep on the fact that anywhere you are in your life, you can get some pretty awesome connections. I'll give you this story. There was a kid who joined my grade school, and I went through a K through 8 school, and this is going to all come back around. A kid joined in the 3rd grade. Really cool kid. We were very, very chummy. We were friends, but different friend groups, all that stuff. We grow up together. We go to high school together. He ends up going to OSU, as you said. Then I go to Yale, and then I go out to California. I work at companies. I didn't start my own company. He goes to Berkeley for business school. He then ends up becoming a VC.
Mm-hmm.
We stay in touch when he's in the Bay. I keep up with him here and there. I start my new company. He's like, hey, let's catch up. He leads my round.
Oh, wow.
So and shout out to Will McKelvey from Lair Hippo. And I think it's just important to remember, like, the most important part is like, number one, like back to that like kind of Midwestern kind of piece there is like one of the things that we do very well is that there's a natural inclination to just like try to be helpful. And it's not about what you're getting out of someone in the moment that you're talking to them or things like that. And so many of the stories in my founder journey have been similar to that, where it was just like, I just genuinely try to help people along the way. Some of those people have businesses way bigger than anything I've ever done at this point. And, that's how it works. So, the suggestion there is like when to get started is now, but also don't discount that your first steps might not look the same as somebody who was born and raised in Silicon Valley and started coding when they were like 10, right? Your first steps, my first steps were just taking CS classes in my junior year, sophomore or junior year, whatever year it was. And saying, I'm just going to keep taking these. And like, I don't know if I'm even going to, it's not even my major, but I'm going to take enough where I know how to code. And then that was my first step. And I'm so glad I took those steps because those steps got me to Dropbox. And then I'm so glad I took the steps to Dropbox so they got me to Facebook, where I started doing fintech. And then those steps got me to my first company. So I think the thing to really emphasize here is take your first steps now. Life is not a dress rehearsal. You can just do it. But also remember, life is it's not a race against someone else. It's a race to getting to where you want to be. And what that means is your first steps might look very different than someone else's. But this isn't about who gets there first. It's about who gets there. And you can't forget that.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it sounds like, it's deeply inspiring, right? So, I mean, coming out of Dayton, I'm coming out of Ohio, that kind of thing. I don't want to harp on this, but it's kind of like a big deal because I was just in Salt Lake City. It's really hard to get attention. It's hard to get attention from outside of your city. And there's only a few VCs. There's only a few VCs hanging out who don't want to look at your thing. And it gets kind of frustrating, obviously. So, all right, very cool.
Yeah. And even with that, like, one of the things you always have to consider is like the trade-off of saying like, do you take a few more years to save up money, take a job in industry in order to get into a market for a little bit where you can do that, right? Like for me, that was the route I took. I was like, well, like probably the best thing for me to do is get my ass over to San Francisco and, like try to learn and like be a sponge there. And like, I'm going to think of every day when I'm working and do a great job at my company. But like, I know one day I want to be a founder and like, how do I start thinking through what can I take away from this experience so that one day I am a better founder?
Well, Mitchell, where can people see what you're working on? Lava.so, right?
Yes. Check us out at lava.so. We can get you up and running pretty fast. If you want to talk and have us set up Lava for you, just click the Talk to a Sales Engineer button on our website and you'll be good to go.
Yeah. Sounds pretty good. Well, thank you. From one Ohio to the other, I'm glad we're both still friendly.
Yeah. Hopefully that never changes, man. Hopefully that never changes.
We'll see. I'm in New York, so I'm just getting grumpier and grumpier.
Likewise, man. I just moved here from San Francisco, actually. So, I'm already now on the subway and like, just looking around, staying eyes forward, elbowing people. So, we'll see what happens. we'll have to check back next time we do a podcast.
Whatever you do, don't go back to Dayton because you'll just be exhausted by everybody. Just how slow they move.
Yeah, tell me about it.
This has been the Innovators. Mitchell, thank you for joining us.
Awesome. Take care, everyone.
We'll see you next episode.
Absolutely.